All right, and then here's the one that we kind of look at and study. This is definitely the most well-known and popular. Was it always? I don't know. Vermeer, for a long time, was nothing. He was unknown. He was just another painter. 35 paintings, not a huge body of work for somebody who's as well-known as he is today. But about 100 years ago, when historians really started looking at things and they were recognizing, okay, the camera obscura, look at what he's done with light, it started drawing more attention, and now he's revered as like one of the most exquisite, talented, important painters in history. This is considered the Dutch Mona Lisa, which is funny because like you guys think of the Mona Lisa, you can all probably picture it, and this is kind of considered the Dutch Mona Lisa, the Mona Lisa, you know, of the Netherlands, of his era, of the Baroque time period, okay? It's interesting because we all think this to be who? Griet, right? And we know a little bit about Griet. You guys will learn a little bit more. There are about 3 different camps of art historians who believe this could be one of 3 people. First, you have Griet, who, you know, was working there, who this could have been, age appropriate. The way Chevalier kind of unfolds the storyline is amazing. She ties together different kind of attributes of their personality and what his strengths are and her weaknesses are, but also what Griet's strengths are and Vermeer's weaknesses are. And she finds a way to kind of make them have this bond. At the same time, she kind of puts blockades in between them. And it makes the story very interesting as you guys read this, all right? What I think is interesting is that history tells us that he also had a daughter named Maria. All right. He also, Peter Van Rijn, had a daughter named Magdalena. They were all circa the same age. We can't be totally certain when something was painted. We can't be totally certain how old these people were. Would it have made sense for Van Rijn, if he had the money, to want a picture of his daughter painted? Absolutely. Would it have made sense for Vermeer to be able to tell Griet, you're going to sit here while I paint you? Absolutely. Would it have made sense for his daughter? Absolutely. So depending on like what you want to believe, it could have been. When I was finding that out, I was like, oh, it has to be Griet. Like, I was almost like, no, it has to be. But then when I started kind of thinking about it, I'm like, well, no, I guess it doesn't have to be. But because of the way Chevalier writes it, she's choosing one perspective and one point of view, and she's drawing that storyline. And so you guys can kind of, you know, take that and form your own opinion. If you read what was up there, did anyone read? Gets a little PG-13 when he's talking to her while she's modeling, and that would be weird if that was his daughter. Just going to put that out there. This is an image of the camera obscura. This is just kind of this would be more advanced than probably what was used. However, woodworking was, you know, very respected, and it was a very popular, very popular trade that people who weren't necessarily woodworkers could still be a woodworker. Does that make sense? It was a valued trade. And so they had, you know, it wasn't like they were going and getting cardboard boxes. This could have been something. Now the hardware and the lenses and everything, not so advanced. This one, I just wanted to show you guys another idea, just the lighting, to give you guys an idea of the shadows and everything. This is the only one, the only painting that people have occasionally said, you know, we don't know what's going on here, like if this is Vermeer. This has had a little bit of controversy. There's some others where there's like a mirror in the background, but to the knowledge of most art historians, he has not been like, here I am, I'm going to paint myself in a self-portrait. So what he looks like is very much speculation. Oftentimes we think because he chose a certain type and look in the males that he chose, that could have reflected upon what he looked like as another kind of backwards way, and almost a, like, subconscious, no. Anyways, as another way, almost like a subtle way to kind of say, this is what I look like, this is who I am, but not necessarily, very much speculation. This is a radiograph of the Girl with the Pearl Earring painting, and a radiograph is kind of like an x-ray, and it takes the layers and breaks them apart, and it tells you what's under each layer. If you took and drew an X through this, you would get this part right here as the center. What we know about the camera obscura is that most likely you're going to center the image on the canvas. It probably made a certain size, and he had his canvas there, and the camera obscura probably centered that image right onto his canvas where he was sitting there and drawing. The only part that there isn't any, real drawing is the parts that are the lightest, very, very lightest part, which is here, and that's the what? Yep, and that would be like the reflection of the light on the pearl. You have the highlights on the face, which is the lightest part, and the only other part, this is not light in the painting whatsoever, but the pinhole of light that shines through obviously is going to be bright white, and that's what this would have been. And so this is what gave art historians kind of a little bit more concrete proof with the idea of the camera obscura and how it was used and if he used it, and how, of course, I will tell you guys have used the grid in my classroom to work with art. You've used overheads before. If I didn't have to worry about drawing something perfect, I could certainly focus a lot more on my painting. Does that make sense? So if he can kind of like skip that head, it's almost like taking, oh, you don't really have to be that good at drawing. You can just trace it and then be awesome at painting. And it's interesting because nobody's really revered him. Like, no one's been like, oh, his perspective, yes, it's amazing, but like he was, cheating. But his painting is also phenomenal. Well, he could focus more on his painting, A, if he was taking a year to complete a painting, and B, if that drawing could have been, finished in a day. It also tells you he didn't necessarily have to have what sitting in front of him? The model. He didn't have to have, if he had some of the painting, he could have that table and he could paint some of that stuff with the table, and only maybe had to have the model for color and lighting and such. Okay?